I think, blowing all the chops and things like that. Although, I mean, calisthenics are good because, Steve Smith once said at a clinic, it's not about being able to play faster, it's about being able to play it easier. So the practice thing comes in great for that kind of thing to where you can pull from that vocabulary, but it's the true musician is knowing when to place those things. Because you can get in a lot of trouble and you go in on a freelance gig that you got to call 30 minutes prior, and you show up and you just start spewing the whole time. That's going to be the last time you're called. Your job is to make them comfortable to where they can do whatever they want and not have to worry about what the drummer is doing. You've got that pulse covered, and you've got the dynamics and the respect to allow the people that you're playing with to do what they need to do with as little problem as possible. Because the freelance world, there is no rehearsal, there is no second chances. You have to show up, do your job, play respectfully, and say more with less.
Can I add just to realize the rest of the song is going on? I play bass, and I was definitely guilty of thinking in some songs my part was too simple, too boring. But then I realized there's all this other stuff going on. Everybody out at the bar or in the crowd, they're listening to the whole band. They're not just listening to the bass player. And all of a sudden I realized that it's okay to do that, but I was just worried about my part. It's just too simple. I'm not doing enough. But that's what the song called for, and I could let go, and it definitely breathes
Simplicity
more.
is your
When
friend.
you add more members to the band, when
Exactly.
you go from a 4-piece to a 6-piece, you've got to take extra steps to stay out of each other's way.
Yeah, Ken.
Can you talk a little bit about like your upbringing in drumming, like the open-handed playing? That's
Sure.
You don't see a ton of people do. Where did you get your start?
Well, I write left-handed. I started playing when I was very young, 3 or 4. My grandfather played drums. I have his kit, his old kick and snare, old brown label Gretches. I've always written left-handed, and I started playing open-handed back then. And I remember calling him when I was a kid. I said, "Poppy, I'm not playing like other drummers." He said, "Well, it's on the phone. Describe to me what you're doing." I said, "Well, I'm doing this." He said, put the snare drum on the other." He's from Jersey. "Put the snare drum on the other leg." Snare drum's between my legs. I'm like, what? It was years later that I figured out what he meant was put the kick drum on the other leg, but I never did. So I always played this way. I'm from up north, born in Jersey, lived in Long Island for a couple of years, and during that time, that was 8th and 9th grade. So back in those days, I'm playing the records. I had the record player, those big flat discs of plastic kids.
You're not that old, come on.
Oh, yes, sir. I'll be 50 in July, believe it or not.
No.
Yes, sir. Anyway, so I was practicing to records like Boston's first record, Foreigner's first record, Songs in the Key of Life, Chicago's greatest hits. And I just had this. And I'm playing, and I'm going to this guy. And he's like, "Look, R-L-R-L. I am not going to, it's not L-R-L-R. You will play right-handed." Great. And he was staunch traditionalist, Buddy Rich drum kit with newspaper in the bass drum, ride cymbal down here. So there I am playing that blue book with the red spine on it. What is that?
Shaker.
Okay. Ding, 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 fat, da, ding, ding, ding. I'd go home and I'm like, put the cymbal back over there. I'm playing Steve Miller's Book of Dreams. My mom would come running upstairs. "You put that cymbal on the other side. I'm not paying for those drum lessons. You're going to play right hand. I can tell the difference." I'm like, So, we moved here. I was in 10th grade, and I got into marching. marching band. And I'm still leading left. But back then, there was the transition from side-slung drums to core style, which is flat drums, four-snare drums, things like that. I'm going this way, they're going this way. And we had a guy from Spirit of Atlanta come over and give us some lessons and things like that. He's like, oh, whoa, 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 dude, no. You must play right-handed. So luckily, I had that 2 years of somebody yelling at me saying RL, RL, that I was able to make the transition and keep my job and adapt and mark time right-handed and things like that.
Where that picture came from with the drumstick?
Oh, heck yeah, man. Oh, yeah. Lots of moxie back then. But, so that was, the whole marching band thing was an integral part in me being able to separate. I already had the left hand thing going, but I had to work on the right hand. So, when I do have a bigger kit, I'm able to phrase with my right hand and still keep the top end going. That was a big part of my drumming upbringing. I started playing live for a living when I was 18, graduated high school, got into a rock band because I was guy that I used to work with was the front of house guy for this band that he lived with. And,
What band?
oh man, this was back in '81, so it was just a local rock band, but we had the 24-foot truck full of gear with the sugar scoops and all the park ends, and we would do all the colleges and the big stages outside, and it would wind up being a competition between bands. We had enough gear to where the band producers, would use us as an opener because we had the football. We had the big gear, and they would come up.
The Balls Brothers, or what was that?
No, it was a band called the Censors. And it's Matt and Diane Dillon, who own a production company here in town called Dillon Productions. What they did was parlay all that gear that we had into a sound company that they're still doing. So, yeah, I was making $225 a week, thinking I was just rich, We had a 40-foot motorhome that we'd ride around in, do the southeast and do all that kind of stuff. And then after that, I'd say about '83, I started clubbing here in town. And back then, man, we were working 7 nights a week. 2-week runs. It was a place called Carlos McGee's. And they had 5 rooms. So we would play 2 weeks at one, 2 weeks at the next, and it was a living. I would sleep until 3, get up, eat, maybe go see a movie, and go to the gig from 10 until 3. Long hours, 5 sets, playing constantly. The first band I got into in that circuit was a band called The Running. That was like a techno-pop band. I was playing Thompson Twins and The Fix and things like that when it was on the radio. Now it's come back around. You've got Electric Avenue playing. And it's become retro. I was playing that stuff when it was on the radio. So if that says anything. And we went to Star Search. I was on TV twice with them back then. We won once. But that was my introduction into the circuit. And then I moved on to another band, Boss Tweed, who I still play with. And they're still my best friends, and I'm actually recording them at my studio. Which is another thing. Playing drums and playing bass and doing music for a living is not as easy as it used to be. So I found that you've got to do other things. And, the old adage of go to school, get a degree, to where you have something to fall back on is, although I poo-pooed it the whole time, because I was just convinced that I'd be playing with Sting by the time I was 25, sometimes that stuff doesn't happen. So what I've been able to do is I always paid attention, since I had my roommate from when I was 18, running sound, I always paid attention to signal path and things like that, meaning routing, like our friend Johnny is doing over there. And now, with the advent of things like Pro Tools and computers, I have my own recording rig at home, and I took the Pro Tools course, got pretty savvy on it, and now I can freelance from home. I go out to my garage, people send me tracks, and then I'll cut drums and I'll email them to them. Like Ken said, I've sent stuff to China, Bolivia, Stone Mountain. Doesn't matter. I don't meet half of the clients that I have. Now, I've taken that even further, and when I do a record for somebody, I beg the question, who's mixing it? Because I paid attention to that kind of thing. And when they say, I said, well, I play different records that I've played on, different things that I've mixed. I said, I can do this for you. And now I've gotten into the situation where I'm mixing records as well. So this was what I started making a living with. But then I parlayed it into other things. Russ teaches. You know, it's not all about just gigging. Those days are long gone as far as being able to make a living just gigging. And if you are making a living, it's a very modest one. But it always has been. I mean, the big gigs, yeah, they come. I've been very lucky. I played with some seriously good players. I've played stadiums. I've been on TV, Leno, things like that. But those are so small in the grand scheme of your career. The peaks and valleys, man. I mean, the musician's life is a roller coaster. And, you know, I've learned to appreciate the things that I've been able to do. I've been very fortunate. At 50, as far as my whole career bucket list goes, I pretty much checked it all off, which not everybody gets to do, right? I mean, but those are fleeting moments in time. What is consistent is being able to do what Russ and I are talking about doing, which is make a living, however modest it is, whether it's one night a week or 5 nights a week, and being able to do your craft with respect, without anything to prove. I saw a clinic at Pro Percussion when I was a kid, who's Bozio. And the first thing he gets up there and says, look, let me just tell you something. Don't take yourself so seriously. Don't go into a situation thinking, you deserve to be there. You deserve better. I have something to say. Because none of that matters. What matters is being able to do what is required of you within that given time and space, and do it with respect, without disrespecting people by blowing over them. You can make things interesting with less. It all is about respect. And you will come across players that just don't get it. They don't get it. As long as they've been playing longer than I have, they still don't get it. That's not your problem. You're going to come across those people. You're going to have problems with musicians. It's personalities. You've got to have an ego to be able to sit up here and talk in front of people and play in front of people with confidence. But the trick is being able to do that with respect. I think really what really brought it around for me was having my daughter. She's 10. And I've learned how to get my point across to a personality like that without hurting somebody's feelings. And with an ego, all of our egos, they are very, very touchy about that kind of thing. I've often said that freelance musicians should have an honorary doctorate in psychology, because playing with people, you really, really gotta, you have to placate, you have to nurture other people. And especially being a drummer, because it's so foundational and rudimentary, you've got to be able to take what you're doing and make the musician that you're playing with very comfortable in their own skin, to where they can play without having to worry about anything else. because if you interrupt that, if you make them second guess themselves, they're going to be looking at you with the nasty look, and they're going to be blaming you for being uncomfortable.